Welcome to Spooky Stories. I'm Milo, your guide through the chilling and the unknown. Here, we dive into terrifying tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Join our community of thrill seekers, and let's explore the darkness together. Are you ready to be scared? 1. I was just an ordinary girl, full of life and excitement, ready to celebrate a friend's birthday in Oregon. Little did I know that one simple decision would plunge me into a nightmarish 7-year ordeal that defied all logic and sanity. This is my story, the story of Colleen Stan, often referred to as the girl in the box. It was 1977, and I was hitchhiking my way to a party. Hitchhiking was common back then, and I thought nothing of it. When Cameron Hooker and his wife, Janice, pulled over to offer me a ride, I felt a twinge of unease. But their smiles seemed genuine, and the presence of a woman in the car reassured me. If only I had known how wrong I was. The journey started off normal enough, with polite conversation and casual small talk. But as we drove deeper into the wilderness, my anxiety grew. Suddenly, Cameron pulled the car over, and everything changed in an instant. He grabbed me with a force I couldn't resist, binding my hands and forcing a gag into my mouth. Panic surged through me as I realized I was being kidnapped. Cameron and Janice took me to their remote home, where my nightmare began. They stripped me of my clothes, dignity, and identity, placing a heavy wooden box over my head to restrict my senses. I was forced into a tiny coffin-like box, barely large enough to move. For hours, days, and eventually years, I spent my life in that box, hidden under their bed. The psychological torment was as unbearable as the physical confinement. Cameron manipulated me, convincing me that he was part of a powerful organization that would kill me and my family if I tried to escape. The fear paralyzed me, making every moment a struggle to maintain my sanity. Cameron's control over me was complete. He would take me out of the box only to torture and abuse me. My existence was reduced to a series of monotonous, horrifying routines. Every day, I was forced to perform tasks for the hookers, becoming their personal slave. Yet, amid the horror, I clung to the hope that one day I would be free. Janice, Cameron's wife, played a perplexing role in my captivity. At times, she seemed almost sympathetic, as if she too was a prisoner of Cameron's twisted mind. She had her own reasons for staying with him, but over the years, I began to sense a shift in her demeanor. She became increasingly uncomfortable with the horrors she witnessed and, perhaps, realized she too needed a way out. Years passed, and my will to survive remained unbroken. I started to build a fragile bond with Janice, planting seeds of doubt in her mind about Cameron's control over us. I told her stories of my family, of the life I had before the box, hoping to ignite a spark of humanity within her. The breaking point came in 1984. Janice, torn between her loyalty to Cameron and the growing realization of his monstrous nature, finally agreed to help me. We concocted a plan, a risky, desperate gamble for freedom. One evening, when Cameron was away, Janice and I made our move. My heart pounded as we fled the house, every step filled with terror and hope. We made it to a phone, and Janice dialed the number that would change everything. She called the police, revealing the horrors of the past 7 years. I was finally free, my nightmare over. Cameron was arrested, and the truth of my captivity shocked the world. The aftermath was a whirlwind of emotions. I struggled to rebuild my life, haunted by the memories of the box and the cruelty I endured. But I was determined to reclaim my identity and find a semblance of normalcy. With the support of my family and the strength I discovered within myself, I began the slow process of healing. Cameron Hooker was convicted and sentenced to 104 years in prison. The man who had stolen 7 years of my life would spend the rest of his behind bars. Janice, in exchange for her cooperation, received immunity from prosecution, a controversial decision that sparked public outrage. My story became a symbol of resilience and survival, a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure even the most unimaginable horrors. But it also served as a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind seemingly ordinary facades. The world would never forget the girl in the box, and neither would I. As I continue to navigate life beyond the box, I am filled with gratitude for the freedom I now cherish. Each day is a reminder of the strength it took to survive and the courage it took to escape. My story is not just about the horrors of captivity, but also about the power of hope, resilience, and the unbreakable human spirit. In sharing my journey, I hope to inspire others to find their own strength in the face of adversity. My past will always be a part of me, but it no longer defines me. I am Colleen Stan, a survivor, and I will continue to live my life with the fierce determination that kept me going during those darkest years. 2. It was the early 80s in California, a time of freedom and exploration, but also a time when the dark underbelly of society began to reveal itself in the most sinister ways. As a young man with dreams and aspirations, I had no idea that my journey along the highways of California would lead me to a brush with pure evil. I remember the day clearly. The sun was setting, casting an orange glow over the Pacific Coast Highway. I was hitchhiking, a common practice back then, trusting the goodwill of strangers to get me from one place to another. It was supposed to be a simple trip, a quick ride to meet up with friends, but fate had other plans. A sleek, dark-colored car pulled over, and the driver leaned out with a friendly smile. He introduced himself as Randy, and there was something disarmingly charming about him. I hesitated for a moment, but his offer seemed too convenient to pass up. I climbed in, and that's when the nightmare began. Randy was polite, almost too polite, as we drove along the scenic route. He engaged me in casual conversation, asking about my life, my dreams, and my plans. But there was an underlying tension in the air, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I chalked it up to the nerves of hitchhiking and tried to relax. As we drove, Randy offered me a drink. I accepted, grateful for the refreshment. But soon after, my vision began to blur, and a heavy drowsiness overcame me. Panic set in as I realized something was terribly wrong. My limbs felt like lead, and my mind struggled to stay conscious. The last thing I remember was Randy's sinister smile as darkness swallowed me whole. When I woke up, I was in a place I didn't recognize, a small, dimly lit room that reeked of fear and despair. My hands and feet were bound, and I could barely move. Randy stood over me, his demeanor completely transformed. The friendly facade was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating predator. He took his time, methodically inflicting pain and humiliation. The horror of those moments is something I can barely describe, a blur of agony and helplessness. Randy Kraft was not just a murderer. He was a sadist who took pleasure in the suffering of his victims. He drugged me repeatedly, ensuring I was conscious enough to experience the full extent of his cruelty. In the midst of my torment, I clung to a sliver of hope. I remembered the faces of my loved ones, the life I still wanted to live. Somehow, despite the overwhelming despair, I found the strength to survive. I had to outsmart him to find a way out of this living hell. Randy's arrogance was his weakness. He believed he had complete control, that his victims were nothing more than helpless playthings. But I was determined to prove him wrong. I watched and waited, pretending to be more broken than I was, biding my time for the right moment to escape. One night, as he prepared to dispose of me like so many others, I saw my chance. He had underestimated my will to survive, and I used every ounce of strength left in me to break free from my restraints. The adrenaline surged through my veins as I fought back, catching him off guard. I managed to knock him down and make a run for it. Stumbling through the darkness, I found my way to a nearby road. Bloodied and battered, I flagged down a passing car, desperate for help. The driver, a kind-hearted stranger, immediately called the police, and soon I was surrounded by flashing lights and concerned faces. Randy Kraft was arrested that night, his reign of terror finally coming to an end. The authorities discovered the extent of his gruesome crimes. The bodies of young men scattered along the highways like discarded trash. The true horror of his actions sent shockwaves through the community, and the media dubbed him the Highway Killer. In the aftermath, I struggled to piece my life back together. The trauma of my ordeal haunted me, but I was determined not to let it define me. I became an advocate for other survivors, sharing my story to raise awareness and prevent such atrocities from happening again. Randy Kraft was eventually convicted of 16 murders, but it's believed he may have claimed up to 51 lives. The sheer scale of his crimes was almost incomprehensible, a testament to the darkness that can lurk within a seemingly ordinary person. His trial was a spectacle, a gruesome reminder of the evil that can exist in our world. Yet, amid the horror, there was a glimmer of hope. My survival became a beacon of resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can endure. I found strength in the support of my family, friends, and the countless others who reached out to me. The road to recovery was long and arduous, but I emerged stronger, more determined to live a life filled with purpose and meaning. I refused to let Randy Kraft's actions define me. Instead, I chose to focus on the future, to honor the memory of those who didn't survive by living my life to the fullest. In sharing my story, I hope to shed light on the horrors that can hide in plain sight and to inspire others to be vigilant, to trust their instincts, and to never give up hope. The past will always be a part of me, a dark chapter in my life, but it no longer controls me. I am a survivor, and I will continue to live my life with courage and determination. Randy Kraft remains in prison, a reminder of the evil that exists in the world. But I choose to focus on the good, on the countless people who showed me kindness and support. My story is not just about the horrors of the past, but also about the strength of the human spirit and the power of hope. I am living proof that even in the face of unimaginable evil, we can find the strength to survive and thrive. 3. The warm Austin evening was alive with the promise of celebration. I had just landed a new job, a milestone that deserved a night out. My friend offered me a ride to mark the occasion, and I was filled with excitement and hope. The city lights blurred as we drove, and I felt a surge of exhilaration. Little did I know, this night would end in the most unimaginable horror. We pulled up to Colton Petaniak's apartment, a place that seemed like any other. Colton was a friend, someone I had known through the social circles of the city. He greeted us with a casual wave, his demeanor calm and welcoming. It felt like any other night out, just friends gathering to celebrate. I had no reason to suspect that I would never leave that apartment alive. As we entered, the atmosphere inside was thick with the scent of alcohol and a hint of something else, something darker. Colton's eyes had a strange gleam, a wildness that unsettled me. But I pushed the unease aside, telling myself I was being paranoid. After all, I was here to celebrate. The evening progressed in a haze of drinks and laughter, but the underlying tension never quite dissipated. Colton offered me a drink, and I accepted, eager to join in the festivities. As the night wore on, I began to feel strange, a creeping numbness that dulled my senses and clouded my judgment. I tried to shake it off, to focus on the celebration, but my vision blurred and my limbs grew heavy. I woke up in a state of confusion, my mind struggling to piece together the events of the night. The room was dark, and the air was filled with a metallic tang that made my stomach churn. Panic set in as I realized I was not alone. Colton was there, his face a mask of cold detachment. His eyes bore into mine, and I knew something was terribly wrong. Fear gripped me as he moved closer, his intentions clear. I tried to scream, to fight, but my body wouldn't obey. The drugs had taken their toll, leaving me helpless and vulnerable. Colton's hands were on me, and the pain that followed was indescribable. He was methodical, his actions driven by a twisted compulsion that defied reason. I don't know how long the nightmare lasted. Time lost all meaning in that place of horror. My mind drifted in and out of consciousness, each moment filled with agony and terror. Colton's face was the last thing I saw, his cold, emotionless gaze seared into my memory. The next day, the police found my body. I had been dismembered, my remains scattered like so much refuse. The brutality of the crime shocked the community, leaving everyone in a state of disbelief. How could someone do something so horrific? The question lingered, haunting those who knew me and even those who didn't. Colton was arrested, his once charming facade shattered to reveal the monster beneath. The trial that followed was a spectacle, a dark drama that captivated the public. Colton Petaniak, the name that once meant nothing more than a casual acquaintance, was now synonymous with evil. The motive? Drugs and impulsive behavior, they said. But how could that explain the depths of his depravity? It was a question that would never be fully answered, a dark mystery that left everyone uneasy. The courtroom was filled with tension as the details of the crime were laid bare, each revelation more horrifying than the last. Colton's defense tried to paint him as a victim of his own demons, a young man led astray by addiction. But there was no excusing what he had done. The jury saw through the facade, and Colton was convicted, his fate sealed. He would spend the rest of his life behind bars, but that was little comfort to those who had lost so much. In the aftermath, the media frenzy died down, and the world moved on. But for those of us who were touched by this tragedy, the scars remained. My family and friends were left to pick up the pieces, to find some way to make sense of the senseless. They remembered me as I was before that night, a young woman full of life and promise, not the victim of a monstrous crime. As I watched from beyond, I saw the impact of my death ripple through the lives of those I loved. They struggled to cope with the loss, to find some measure of peace in the wake of the horror. And through it all, I hoped that my story would serve as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers that can lurk in the most unexpected places. Life is fragile, a delicate thread that can be severed in an instant. I had dreams and aspirations, a future that was stolen from me in the most brutal way. But even in death, I found a way to make my voice heard, to tell my story so that others might be spared the same fate. If there is one thing to take away from my story, it is this: trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. The world is full of people like Colton, hiding behind masks of normalcy. But if you stay vigilant, if you listen to that inner voice that warns you of danger, you might just save yourself from becoming another statistic. In the end, justice was served, but it came at a terrible cost. My life was cut short, my future stolen. But through my story, I live on, a reminder of the darkness that exists in the world and the importance of staying true to oneself. Remember me not as a victim, but as a symbol of resilience, a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable evil. Meet Sarah. Like many of us, she used to dread bedtime, hours spent tossing and turning, waking up groggy and irritable, and worst of all, her relentless snoring that not only disturbed her sleep, but her partner's as well. Desperate for a solution, Sarah tried everything. New mattresses, white noise machines, even sleeping pills. Nothing worked until she discovered our breathing for sleep routine. One particularly frustrating night, Sarah stumbled upon an article about the power of breathing to improve sleep. Skeptical but willing to try anything, she read about our breathing for sleep routine, a simple, scientifically backed method designed to clear sinuses, enhance breathing, and eliminate oxygen blockades. It promised to guide users through a simple breathing routine for the best sleep of their lives. Intrigued, she decided to give it a shot. As she began the routine, Sarah immediately felt her sinuses clear. She followed the step-by-step guide, learning how to breathe deeply and correctly. Within minutes, she noticed a significant difference. Her breathing was smoother, more relaxed. That night, she fell asleep faster than she had in years and, incredibly, stayed asleep all night. One of the most astonishing benefits was the end of her snoring. The routine included a simple breathing hack that stopped her snoring in minutes. Sarah learned that her habit of mouth breathing was activating her survival mode, preventing her from achieving truly restful sleep. By switching to nasal breathing, she deactivated this mode and allowed her body to fully relax. The next morning, Sarah woke up feeling refreshed and rejuvenated. She couldn't remember the last time she felt so well rested. Her partner noticed the difference too. No more middle-of-the-night disruptions from her snoring. The transformation was remarkable, and Sarah knew she had found something special. Sarah's story is not unique. Many others have discovered the life-changing benefits of our breathing for sleep routine. Imagine falling asleep quickly, sleeping soundly through the night, and waking up feeling fully rested. No more snoring, no more grogginess, just deep, restorative sleep. Are you ready to transform your sleep like Sarah did? Our breathing for sleep routine is easy to follow and starts working immediately. Clear your sinuses, enhance your breathing, and remove oxygen blockades with our guided routine. Say goodbye to snoring and hello to the best sleep of your life. Don't spend another night tossing and turning. Experience the power of proper breathing and reclaim your nights. Try our breathing for sleep routine tonight and wake up to a new, refreshed you. Because everyone deserves the gift of deep, restful sleep. Check out the link for this wonder in the description and the comments. Thank you for joining us on this harrowing journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales of terror. Until next time, stay safe and beware the shadows.